Hey YouTube, so it's Daddy-O's Reviews back again. And I was asked in the comments of one of my shoe videos to do a tie collection video. And so I'm going to do that. I'm going to break it up by color. This first one obviously is the yellows and oranges. I'm also going to do separate videos on reds and then blues and purples. This is about 2/3 of my tie collection that I'll be putting into these videos. The other third I really don't wear anymore. Ties tend to go in and out of style, with widths and styles and all those kinds of things. And actually I'll start on that topic. So first of all, tie widths change. So this is an example of a little bit of an older tie. This is a J.Z. Richards, which is an American-made brand. It's silk screened, but it's a little bit wide. And if you look at that compared to some of the others here, some of these other ties are a lot narrower than this one. There's an example. So there's an older J.Z. Richards on top, newer J.Z. Richards on the bottom. So right now we're going through a phase of narrower ties, not super narrow, but narrower ties. But I just tend to hold on to them, and I don't really get caught up in either going really wide or really narrow with my ties. I prefer to get good looking ties and wear them for a while. So I'll start over here. And so this is an example. This one's actually branded Joseph Bank. This is an example of a woven tie. And what I mean by that, let me zoom in here for a second. The actual design is sewn onto the body of the tie. So that's called woven. And it used to be that was really considered to be the nicer ties. And so when I first started wearing ties on a daily basis, I collected a lot of those because I liked them and they look good. The light really pops off of them. And so that's an example of that. Here's another woven tie. And I think the rest of them here in the yellow collection that I have are pretty much all silk screened. So I'll show you an example of that here with this J.Z. Richards tie. So this is an example of the body of the tie, which is yellow. The colors, the blues and the oranges and the blacks and all the other colors that you see, which by the way on this particular tie are pointed out to you in the tail holder here. All those colors are silk screened one at a time onto the tie. And so again, this is a manufacturer, J.Z. Richards, which is a U.S. brand, a United States brand. Very nice ties. And they're really, if I had to guess, I think they're actually copying what Zegna has been doing for a few years now with their Quindici and Venticinque series of ties. So this is a Venticinque. And basically, again, you have the body of the tie, which in this case is yellow. I'm going to zoom out here for a moment. And then you have all these other colors, which are silk screened one at a time onto the tie. So blues and greens and oranges and reds. And what Zegna does is they actually, on the end of the tie here, the tail is what that's called, they tell you what the 25, in this case, 25 different colors were that were silk screened. It's a very expensive process, very painstaking, but in my opinion, the end result is a beautiful tie. And so that's an example of a Venticinque Zegna, very expensive also. As far as price points, the J.Z. Richards I think are about $100. This Zegna is I think $350 these days. And then here's an example of a Zegna that is not the Venticinque series. So basically this one appears to me 3 or 4 colors instead of the 25. Still a very good looking tie, but not the depth of colors that this one is. And by the way, it's not that one is better than the other. In my opinion, not all ties fit at all functions. So for example, I think this is a really fun tie to wear to business meetings. But if I have a very formal event out, I'm not wearing that tie because it's too loud, it doesn't fit. Instead, I would wear a more subdued tie such as this silver tie that I'm throwing in on top there. So that fits in a more formal occasion. But for day-to-day business, I think any of these ties are appropriate. Again, we have this one on top. There's a couple other J.Z. Richards. This orange one is another J.Z. Richards 10-color silkscreen tie. Let's see, this is a different brand. So this one is a Robert Talbot. Again, silkscreened. To my eye, it looks like 4 or 5 colors. Doesn't really tell me, but very nice tie. We have the two J.Z. Richards. That's the Ventichinque, and then here's a couple other Zegnas. Again, not the Quindici or Ventichinque series, but the Zegna nonetheless, as you can see on the back of the tie there. And I wear all these all the time. And I try to keep them as nice as possible. Sometimes you end up spilling something on the tie, and that generally, at least in my experience, unless it's a very expensive tie, that's not something that I want to try to fix, because you can't really, typically if it's stained, you cannot get that fixed. Even if you send it to the dry cleaner, it comes back all bunched up and it's never quite right again. So again, we have the the Joseph Bank ties here. This is another Zegna. And by the way, the Ventichinque and the Quindici ties, which you'll see more of in the other videos, those are a little bit more expensive for sure. The standard line Zegnas are very, very good ties. This is an example of that. And I think these are more in the $150 range, so slightly above the J.Z. Richards. I think the Zegnas have a little bit better feel, and they seem to last a little better. And I attribute that to the actual lining of the tie. The material, the silk on the top is going to be very similar, but the lining of the tie and how flexible it is and how much it holds that knot is how I rate my ties. And then this is an example of another Robert Talbot. And this is a fun one. I probably don't wear this one enough, but it's really bright yellow. I hope that's coming through the video here. Really bright yellow with pinks and blues, and it's a lot of fun. Anyway, so that's my yellow ties. Hope you enjoyed. If you have questions, let me know, and you can expect some other videos with my other ties coming up shortly.